Well, welcome to another video of the Alberta Women's Independence Network.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. You were gallivanting around the globe, having a good time.
I was a little ways around the globe.
That's pretty awesome.
It was fun. Yeah, my husband had work over in the UK. I'd never been to the UK before. So we headed over there. We were just north of London for a couple days and we went to Ireland and then I had lived in Belgium before.
Yeah.
And so I took him over there and we stayed with some friends and had a great time. He's a huge history buff, so took him to Hill 62, which was an area where there was some major, it was basically the front for World War One.
Mm-hmm.
Not very far from the coast at all, from Dunkirk or Ostend. Anyways, we got to go climbing through. They still have the trenches there that you can go
Wow.
climb through, and all these old photos of what they found. It was basically a farmer's field that, the residents basically had to leave because the war was coming through, and they built this huge, intricate system of tunnels and trenches all throughout this farmer's field. And when they came back, they just decided to keep it the way it is. And there's a Canadian government memorial right there, right next to the area.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was quite the sobering, interesting experience. I'd been there a few times before. I'd been there like 30 years ago, and then again 6 years ago, I took my sister through there. So that was fun to take Jeff through there.
That's fascinating. And history in itself, um, I don't know. Maybe it was just the schools that I went to, or I just slept through those classes. I'm not sure, but just was never given the proper recognition that it should.
I'm going to agree with you on that. And I'm going to even say, in a very modern sense of the word, we have the same problem with the education system. And we see that with our meetings that we're having with, women
Yeah,
who are moms and grandmas and community members who all went through the public school system. And we had a social studies teacher, high school social studies teacher, come to a meeting, and she was like, I am so ashamed I didn't even know this. And it's basic government. It's basic, how are things set up and how did we get here? Real basic Canadian history.
mm-hmm.
It's like you said, like I don't think we all slept through it. I think that there's so much information being crammed into the curriculums and stuff that there's no real time to really sit with the really important things and the principal things. And that's where we end up where we are right now, where people are beginning to realize how bad of a situation we are in Canada because of the system.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It is. The system is broken, and and if we don't explore that and figure out why, well, then we don't know how to fix it.
Right.
And then when people in Alberta who get very frustrated with the system get out and try to fix it, they get quashed,
Oh
told to
yeah.
sit down and shut up. And literally sometimes. And
Mhm.
then in the separatist movement, if we haven't done our homework and our history lesson in just the very, handful of decades that we've really experienced the ebbs and flows of it, we don't always know when history repeats.
Right.
And I think we're seeing history repeat, Angela.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the idea of Alberta separatism is so exciting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the thinking about like what we could actually do if some of the shackles were taken off of us
Yeah,
and we were allowed to really develop our resources and just build some true wealth to bless our families and our communities and then the further world out from there. And to me, that's so exciting. And so, something happened this week, and you and I could discuss a little bit more detail, that both of us red flags, right?
immediate,
Like
immediate.
immediate, like Oh my heck no. I guess here we go again. And so today we wanted to kind of give a warning to Alberta separatists. And
Hmm.
we're not the only ones who've seen this. Clearly we're not. Um, but hopefully for those who are new to the idea of Alberta separatism, they need to know what to look for,
Yeah.
and understand exactly what it is that they're up against and why we have seen that ebb and flow, over the last 40 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so I wanted to, with that, point out a really good book that helped me understand, when you and I were involved with the Wild Rose Independence Party, um, not the original Wild Rose. Make that
No.
clear. Everybody knows it's the Wild Rose Independence Party. I joined in 2020 and you were going, a few years before that type of thing. But this book really helped me kind of understand what I was seeing because as a brand new constituency association president, I was brand new into politics. And you get into it about a year and you start to see things and you're like, something's not right, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right? I've never been here before. So, but my spidey senses are going off like something's not right here. So this book by Michael Wagner. So it's Alberta Separatism Then and Now. It's not a huge read. It's a very easy read. He lays it out. Michael is a wonderful writer, and if you've never read politics or anything before, and you've always thought, "Oh, that'd be boring," not boring. It's quick. He moves quickly through what has happened in the last 40 years with the separatist movement and why.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I don't know. How would you? It's it's always described as we have a party, a separatist party. It starts to gain some momentum, and then the next thing you know, there's some infighting, and the whole thing implodes on itself.
Yeah. That's how it's described.
That's the simple, easy way that people describe it, but
It's a little more complicated than that.
it is.
It's a little more complicated than that. And what you and I observed makes me think that it's probably what happened every time prior. Just maybe people didn't recognize it. Just like I think maybe we wouldn't have. Honestly, if you and I hadn't have become such good friends and so close and talking all the time, and it wasn't just you and I, there was a handful of us, and I'm going to be very blunt in saying a handful of us women who kind of have that second intuition that we're wired with.
Yeah.
Um, Looking and talking this through and going, what's going on? What's happening here? How come this and this and this and this and that and that and that and that? And then we began to piece the puzzle together. And I think maybe that's what has not happened. That's not what happened prior. People just thought it was infighting and then the whole thing implodes. Well, I'm going to challenge that ideology and say, agree, yeah, it's infighting. Yes, it implodes. But the root of the infighting is actual external infiltration
Oh
that
yeah, no
comes
doubt.
in, right? It's external infiltration when it comes in. So as soon as we gain any kind of traction or any steam at all, that like say right now, 35, 40% in the polls, depending which one you're looking at, but never lower than 35. Um, and then if you add on those that are considering becoming the 51st state,
Right.
on top of that, we're way beyond um we're way beyond reaching that threshold of no returning back, right? So there's some folks that are angry about this. And so what they'll do, what in our experience will happen is the folks that are angry about it, typically from Ottawa, typically from conservative Ottawa, will come in, try and find the weakest links in the party, which isn't very hard. You just have to find the ones with the biggest egos, hence the egos that pull it all down. And then they promise them who knows what under the moon. I was never privy to those conversations, so I don't know what it was. I don't know how those conversations went, but it's always the same personalities, it's always the same tactics. And then it's like it's those folks' mission to try and steer everything off course.
Yep.
And that goes hand in hand with why. when we were talking about what do we do now, it's growing again. We have to do something. We can't just sit back. Neither you or I are any good at that, sitting back and doing nothing. So that's where Awin was born out of,
Mm-hmm.
because the brilliance behind it is, you really think you're going to get a bunch of women to stop talking
Over coffee.
over coffee?
Like, yeah, like there was a very specific, I mean, you and I, we went back and forth for weeks. Like, how do we wanted to have an organization
Mm-hmm.
that, then we could invite people to become a part of it. But how do we structure it in a way that it can't be infiltrated and
No.
it can't be watered down or taken down, that type of thing. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about what we're talking about infiltration. I'm sure we just sound like conspiracy theorists, and no, I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat. But
I got a closet full of them.
oh, sure. Anyways, but we'll go into more detail in a second about why
Yeah.
we're saying that, the
Yeah.
infiltration type thing. But yeah, I mean, Awin, it is simply a network of women
Yep.
getting together and talking and sharing information with each other and educating each other on the system
Yep.
and why it's not tenable and why Alberta needs to get out, and also the possible positive effects that could actually have on the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those types of things. But yeah, we decided very specifically no board,
Nope.
is once you have a board, and let this be a warning to those who think that the way that we're going to reach Alberta separatism is by somebody doing a grassroots party. Here's another book which I found very helpful. Totally agree with it after my experience with WIPA, The Sovereignist Handbook by Corey Morgan. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Corey was part of one of those grassroots parties.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing happened to him and to them that it does to every single one. Once you have a board, once it is a public entity, you've got policy, you've got bylaws that are filed, your society, all that stuff. The minute you do that, you have opened yourself up for to be taken down,
That's correct.
to be taken down. And so, what are we talking about being taken down? Um, so I was a CA president, like I said, brand new to politics. I kind of by accident got elected to be the CA president for Cardston Sixica. Um, yeah, it's anyways, I won't go into that story. It's not necessary. But yeah, we were going gung ho, and I remember one of the provincial board members coming and sitting in my living room, and we had a whole bunch of people here, and things were just kind of getting going. We were excited about it, and we were selling memberships and having meetings, and things were going. And
Yeah.
this provincial board member came, and he was an older person who had he sat there and he boasted about how he'd been involved in the separatist movement for the last 40 years in Alberta. And after he left, a member of my board, who was an older gentleman who had been in and out of politics, had been civically minded and involved for many years, he said, "So if he's been involved for the last 40 years, what has he done?"
Yeah.
And the way this guy talked, you'd think that, we were on the cusp of separation because of his efforts. And he ended up being one of these key people that took WIPA down. I mean, WIPA still technically exists. I think the last time I checked, their financials, they had one donor for the whole year.
Yeah, and I think now they're getting ready to merge with the Independence
Of
Party.
course they are. Of course
Yeah.
they are.
So,
You know what? The exact same thing will happen. But here was my crazy experience. Now, I'm a grandma. I'm a
mm-hmm.
grandma. That's it, right? So we the CA presidents started to come together to have meetings because we weren't getting any help from the board. We could see that the board was in turmoil
Mm-hmm.
and crazy things was happening. Like we had this great website that they took down.
Yep.
and replaced it with a piece of crab, like just crazy, like things that didn't make sense. And so we started to get together and talking because we're volunteers. We've been recruiting volunteers. We've been recruiting donations from people. People are making sacrifices because they believe in this movement.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my goodness, like, no, it's going down. And it's because of the provincial board, right? And so, anyways, I will tell this story without relating names, but I had been up in Edmonton and Leduc, doing some meetings for WIPA,
Mm-hmm.
driving back through Calgary, and I was basically invited at the last minute to come and talk to somebody. And I didn't know who I was going to be talking to, but I was driving down with somebody else, and they said, I need you to come talk to this person with me, to somebody. So, okay. So we get there, and okay, I was sitting in a men's shower room, which I'm like, how did what am I doing? It's a Saturday night. I'm sitting in a men's shower room at a skating rink. And they had chosen that place because there was no cameras. They knew there would be no cameras in the shower rooms. I'm like, there had been some event at the skating rink and it was like late at night and whatever.
Yeah.
And these two guys came in and I recognized both of them. One of them I had talked to extensively. The other one, I don't think I'd ever talked to him in person, but I knew who he was. Anyway, it's this one person that was there, that had asked to speak to me. He'd been watching what was going on in WIPA. And he'd been watching my efforts and the efforts of others to kind of combat what was going on. And this guy had worked in Ottawa for a number of years. And as part of that work, he'd actually worked with CSIS, which is like the Canadian version of the FBI type of thing, security and that type of thing. And he said, you know what? I want to talk to you because I don't think you know what we're dealing with or what you're dealing with. And I want you to understand exactly what's going on. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, would be nice to have some understanding because nothing was making sense. And he said, if there was some federal plants on the board or anywhere in the party, um, I'm going to give you some attributes that those people would have. And then you tell me who they are on the board. And I was like, all right. You went through. And sure enough, I said, so and so, so and so, so and so, and so and so. And he said, you got it. Now you know exactly what you're dealing with. And yeah, they were efficient. They knew exactly what they were doing. And one of those people was the one that had sat in my living room the year previous, boasting about his involvement. Um,
Uh,
so, like I still don't, that's not 100% proof that they were put there intentionally to take the party down. But from that conversation and watching their subsequent actions and how it basically destroyed the membership of a party that was really picking up and really going somewhere,
yeah.
you have to think, yeah, okay, that's exactly what happened. And that's probably what has happened to every single party that has ever started to actually pick up some steam and go somewhere.
I would even go so far as to expand that to the different groups that are out there too, right? Because from these parties, you get sort of these branch off groups
Mm-hmm.
that then start over here, and then there's some scrapping, and so then they go over to here, and then there's some scrapping, and then it's over here, and then it's over here, and um, I think it has like in this iteration of the movement, it's not just the parties now. It also happens within these groups
Yeah.
that are out there, these independence groups that people have mistakenly thought are parties. Because I've had this conversation with a number of people.
Ooh.
Which one are you with? Like they're not a political party. They're their Facebook page, or their
Right.
website, or they're collecting money. It's like, well, okay, but there's still not anything. Well, who's funding them? Well, I don't know. Like I'm not part of any of them, and there's a reason that I'm not. Um, I've been invited to some of the meetings that
Mm-hmm.
are affiliated with these groups, and I'll finally just go, okay, fine, I'll go. just so that you can stop bothering me to go again. And every time I get in, I'm, oh yeah, I see what's going on, right? And check it off the list. Okay, don't ask me. I'm good. I don't need to go
Yeah.
again. I see it. Um, and that's not. I'm very hopeful, Angela, that nobody's listening to this thinking that, oh well, here's these two ladies that think they have it all figured out. That's not it. We're just here to tell you that within this movement, there's always going to be the rabbit trails. There's always going to be the decoys. There's always going to be a group of people or a person whose job it is to come in and kind of create chaos in
Yeah.
order to destabilize everything. And if you're willing to open your eyes a little bit, you can figure out who or what it is pretty quickly, which then begs the question, when I see on social media, and I spend more time on Twitter now, or I guess X now than anything, because it's
Hmm.
just so much more fun than all the rest of them. But anyway, I see these people on there. Well, all of these groups and parties need to come together under one banner. We need, or someone
Hmm.
wants to start a new party, or there is a new kid on the block party that, well, we need to get all behind them. Mm, I don't think so. We're we're not there yet.
No, no, we're not. And I really think that our focus, and again, going back to Corey Morgan's book, The Sovereigntist Handbook, I 100% agree with him. The
Hmm.
focus has to be on educating Albertans
Yeah.
so that the idea of separation becomes within their minds a valid option and
Yes.
an option with appeal. And they understand why that
Yeah.
is. They understand the system that we're in now, which is really our focus with Awin. Look at, here you go.
Yeah.
You think you live in a democracy, but you don't, because we don't have fair and equitable representation in this country, and we never have.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
that's what we are explaining to people is, there you go. Here is the reality of the system that you live in right now.
Hmm.
Now, what are our options? And when that becomes part of the vernacular of Albertans, where it's like, yeah, you know what, we do have options, and they look pretty good and they're really exciting. When that becomes more general, then we can go to a referendum and be guaranteed success. Then the leader, whoever that will be, will appear.
That's right.
They will rise to the top.
Yeah.
And I mean, we might all have our opinions as who we would like that to be or whatever, but it will just happen, and it won't be someone who's just said, yeah, I'll jump on that bandwagon. That looks like a lot of fun. No, it will be someone who's very knowledgeable and personable and who exemplifies that quiet, firm resolve that all Albertans are going to have if we are going to be able to get through this.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Which is why the education portion is so important right now. The way I see it is it's literally a culture shift that
Mm,
needs to happen. And I mean that in a good way. That
yeah.
the Albertans right now, and I see this, it makes me laugh, right? The elbows up. What is that?
Elbows up what?
Elbows up what? You're still the shopping all the shopping at Costco that's still taking place, and you're telling me elbows up, or at Walmart, or any one of these other stores. No, 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 no. Once we get to where enough of us are going, Alberta is up. Alberta first, not anybody else. Just Alberta first. They see the potential. It's
Mhm.
not even it's not a selfish way of doing it. It's a, oh my gosh, think of what we could be. Think of what we could do. Think of what we could accomplish. Think of how many people we could help
Oh
if
yeah.
we didn't have the shackles of Ottawa around us. And once that goes from here to here, then we're going to be able to check the box on that referendum without any question.
Yeah.
Without any question at all, there's going to be more than enough of us ready to go. And I really hope that enough Albertans can get there, understanding that a conservative government in Ottawa is not any better for us.
Well, it's not because, and I see this on X all the time. Well, if we can get a conservative government, they can change things. No, they legally
And
cannot.
no,
They cannot.
no,
Sure, they might, get rid of Bill C-69 or whatever, so now we can technically build pipelines, but that doesn't mean that we don't have Quebec still standing in the way saying absolutely not coming through here,
that's right.
right? Like there's a few things that they could do that might make things a little better. And I was just listening to a podcast today, with Bruce Hardy and Jason Manson on the Sean Newman podcast. I'm finally listening to the whole thing.
Yeah,
And one of them, I don't remember which one it was, said, my fear is that we'll get to that point and we won't change enough, that we will be pacified with like a few surface changes, but it won't actually address the system, which
that's right.
is the problem and which is not tenable. And
Correct.
so, yeah, we've got to be strong and educated and understand that it's the system that needs changed and that we can't go anything short of that.
No, we can't. We can't. And I think the reason, well, in my mind, anyways, the reason for that is so clear. Now we need it to be that clear in other people's minds. And
Yeah.
that's the whole point of Awin. It's not we're not a political movement. We're not, and we're not here to try and convince anybody of anything, honestly. We're just here to tell you these are the facts. That's it. There's no emotion involved. There's no rah rah jump up and down. Oh, yay, we're going to win. There's nothing. It's just here's the facts. We're just here to help you understand what we already know and to learn even more.
And then make your own decision and you can feel confident in it. But the crazy, like we say that and it's true. That's our
Hmm.
objective. That's our approach. Every single woman who has attended one of our meetings so far to this point walks out of there. One, they're like shocked.
Yeah.
Like this last week we had another meeting and like one of the ladies, like her face is just so screwed up and she's like, how on earth is this possible?
Yeah.
Looking at the handout that we give them, it's like, there's your representation, there's your democracy. And it's just like, how on earth? But every single one of them walks out of there, one, with a much clearer understanding of the reality of our situation in Alberta,
Yeah.
and two, with a resolve to change it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Exactly. And that's where this needs to be right now.
Yep.
So I mean, it's not like you and I are in any position to give any Albertans any advice.
No.
However, if they wanted some, my advice would be don't focus too much on these groups. Don't focus too much on the political parties at this point. We don't even have a referendum ballot yet. We don't have that. I hope that we do, and I think it's coming. But on our way to that moment,
Mm-hmm.
let's just keep educating ourselves and our neighbors and our friends and our families and not fighting and not trying to be right. Um, like even this week, I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with a family member because we were working on a project thing together. And well, I'll just say it. So it was my son that I was hanging out with. And
Yeah.
and so obviously, two generations having these conversations. And his viewpoint, and we talk politics very carefully because we don't always sit on the same side of different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we still talk about it because it's important to have these conversations. And so I have learned how to ask him. He's been so good to me for this reason. I've learned how to ask the questions in order to figure out, well, where's this coming from? How come you're thinking this way? Where's the root of that?
Mm.
And what incredible insight to go, okay, well, we're actually not far apart.
Right.
It's just how we're looking at something. And so I'll give a very clear example of that. One of them was regulations. And he said, all you conservatives, all you want to do is deregulate everything, and then the whole world's going to go to hell in a handbasket because there's no rules and blah, 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 right? And I thought, well, that's not entirely true, but how come you think that? What has happened to cause that thought process to go through your head. And so the more that we were talking about it, then the light bulb went off in my head. And I realized, you know what? We're saying less regulation because most of us do hate rules.
Right.
However, conservatives very much appreciate boundaries.
Yes.
We like boundaries. We don't like rules, just but leave me alone so I can do things the way that I feel comfortable doing them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I said, okay, that I think I get what you're saying. So if we're talking, and specifically we're talking about oil and gas, and I mean, we haven't always been very good at it. And over the years, we've gotten a heck of a lot better. And of course, there's always room to
Sure.
move and to improve, right? I said, so then maybe the regulations on that need to change from um, recording X amount of spills. If the spill was this big, well, then you've got to report it. And if it was this big, you don't. Maybe those regulations need to change that in order to prevent that spill from happening. It's going to be regulated that you need to have this, this, and this in built into those pipelines, like what we saw at this trade show that we were at this week.
Mm-hmm.
All of this innovation, Alberta made innovation, by the way, regulate that to be part of these pipelines so that these spills don't happen. And then that's the common ground. And he said, yes, exactly. So all of that
Mm-hmm.
convoluted story to say that we didn't scrap it out. Instead, we were both trying to go, well, where are you coming from? And I
Right.
think that translates over to this conversation. Okay, I get you're Canadian. I get that's your passport. I understand that. I don't understand your romanticism with that anymore because I'm past that. Um,
Right.
in fact, I don't even know if I ever had it, to be honest. But I don't, uh, I appreciate that some Albertans have that. Well, I'm an Albertan, I'm a Canadian first, or however they want to look at it. But then, okay, let's have the conversation. Why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
What has Canada done for you? What regulations are you wanting to keep that are
Mm.
so important to you that come from that country, where that I want to deregulate
Right.
from that, right? And how come? And so it really made me kind of think this through a little bit differently when having these conversations about Alberta. I would rather see us as Albertans completely thrive, like
Oh
in
yeah.
in every single way. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we leave, I don't know that it means we leave Canada behind. I think we set the standard for what the rest of Canada can do without raping
Yeah.
us to do it,
Yep. Yep. No, I
really.
100% agree with that. And I love that analogy of being able to talk to your son and cross generationally, right?
Yeah.
And coming to the conclusion that we actually are on the same page. And I think that as there's elements in our culture that sow so much divisiveness. The media, some
Hmm.
oftentimes government, that type of thing, um, for their reasons, for their agenda or whatever,
Yeah.
to the point where we're often afraid, like, oh, I don't talk politics. And it's like, mm,
Yeah, better start.
you better start because as we saw, and especially during COVID, I mean, politics and politicians
Mhm.
can affect almost every aspect of your life, including who you have over for Thanksgiving dinner,
That's right.
right? And so we do need to be able to talk about it. And it doesn't mean that you have to climb into the pig pen and it's a giant wrestling match. No, it's a
Mm-mm.
conversation over coffee, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's kind of our message this week is that um we have to understand that as Alberta Separatists that we are in a movement that has targets on its back.
Yeah.
There are those within the province and without the province, like within Canada or even internationally, who greatly benefit from the status quo and will do anything and everything to make sure it stays that way. So our message is we need to be aware of that. We need to be prepared for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and really like there's so many different ways of delivering this message, and I'm so grateful for all the different groups throughout the province who are making efforts to deliver
Hmm.
the message of Alberta separatism, because you know what? Like, somebody's not necessarily going to be interested in sitting down over, coffee and a piece of cake with me to discuss it. They might be more interested in going to a rah rally. Perfectly fine, great, wonderful, right? And
Yeah,
some people are not at all interested in the rah rally and some of the more boisterous ways of getting the message across. They'd rather just sit down in their home with a friend and a neighbor
yeah,
and have that conversation. But either way, however that message gets out, it needs to get out. And so we need to be aware of the target on our back. We need to be aware of what to look for.
yeah.
And we need to be just so united within our diverse ways of doing it, so united as
Hmm.
Albertans that this is the best choice for our province. This is the best choice for our children and our grandchildren, and we're willing to stand up for it and
Exactly.
back our decisions with facts.
Yep.
Leave
A
the emotion
hundred percent.
out of it. Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Emotions later. We can bring the emotions out when we're celebrating with our Independence Day parade. That can be
there you go.
emotional. But
Yeah,
until then, just conversation.
it's a strong, firm resolve and conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Great.
exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I'm not, and you and I have talked about this a number of times. I'm not exactly excited about the path that you and I had to travel to get here
Mm,
because it was pretty bumpy and
it
not
was.
very
It was
pretty. But
pretty
um,
discouraging.
yeah, but I'm glad we're here
Yeah.
because now we can help others get here without hopefully, without having to go through all of that.
Right?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, I'm a bit of a I'm very much a social introvert. So
That's funny.
it is funny because it's like I'll have a meeting and then I was like, now I must hide for 2 days. That type of
Oh my gosh. I'm
but
the opposite. I'm the
are
opposite.
you? There you
Oh,
go. Well, that's
yeah.
why we're working together. So
Yeah.
but
I'm
I
the
just have to,
opposite.
it is so invigorating. It has been so invigorating this last month since we've started this and the meetings that we're having. And we finally have our Grand Prairie date.
We do.
Okay, so I know people in our last video were asking, hey, like, when do you come to Grand Prairie? And we've had a few people reach out. May 1st, it's a
Mhm.
Thursday night, 7 p.m. at the Paradise Inn, second floor conference room.
Yeah.
So that's where we're having meeting. And so this won't be like a sitting over coffee type of meeting because we're traveling a long ways to get up there. And so it's actually another group has invited us to come up and speak and to present what we're doing, what Awin is about, what we're doing. So it will be a larger group setting. I'm hoping, Kathy, if we can find somebody who's willing to have us into their home the next evening, Friday, May 2nd in Grand Prairie, or even at a pub or a cafe or something where we
Yeah.
sit down with some women and just have a conversation. Um, I'm hoping we can do that in Grand Prairie or, the area roundabout uh,
Mm-hmm.
on Friday the 2nd. So if anybody is interested in that, in helping us with that, please reach out to us. And the best way to reach us right now is our email, which is AB Women's Independence Network at gmail.com.
Yeah. It's a long one.
It's a long one, but you can just email us there or comment on this video. Our last video, we got like 3,000 views and a whole bunch of comments. I didn't
I
even
know.
think to check the comments. And
It
people were
comes.
asking questions. I was like, oh, okay, 3 weeks later.
I didn't think it was gonna go, but I put a post up on X. I can't remember now, a handful of days ago,
Hmm.
and it was about the election, the federal election, and all I just said is it's very sad that even if a conservative government gets in, it's not that much different for us. And that's the gist of it, right? That post exploded. And I didn't think I don't get those kind of numbers. And that one just went bananas.
You never
So
know.
you never know. And that kind of, yeah, the last video that we did took us caught us off guard, honestly. We didn't expect it to go the way that it did. We're glad that it did.
Yeah.
We're glad
Yeah.
that people have got questions. We want to answer them. And and for that matter, sign up for the newsletter that goes out
Yeah,
too.
so by emailing us, you can get on our email list because we have a weekly newsletter that comes out with more information,
Yeah.
links to podcast, links to book, we got little book reviews or whatever. Like, here's how you can educate yourself on
Yeah.
the facts and get really confident. Um, yeah, yeah, I just lost my train of thought because there's something else I was going to add to what you had just said, but yeah, we just never know.
Mm,
And oh, this is what it is. Like, please, like if you enjoyed that last video or if you enjoyed this video, you want to share it with other folks, please share it with other folks. It's an
yeah.
easy way for people to find out about what's going on. Especially our last video where we basically laid out like this is what we do in our meetings. This is the information that we're presenting. It's so simple. It's so
Yeah.
simple and straightforward. And then subscribe to our channel as well. We're on Rumble and YouTube. So subscribe to those channels so that you get notifications when we do another video, which we're hoping to
Hmm.
kind of do probably every week if we
I
can.
think so. Yeah. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that.
And
And
if there's particular topics that people want to have addressed, you know, we'll gladly do a video about it. I would love to bring on some guests that
hmm
can address something. We have one woman, I'm so excited, who has agreed to join us in this quest. Kathy, you know her, Susanna,
yeah.
and she is a wealth of information. I won't go into great detail because I'll let her tell the story, but she comes from a country that actually split in two and she's going to share with us what her experience was with that and the result um and it's a wonderful example of being able to peacefully find where you belong.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's a good
yeah,
way to put it.
yeah,
That's a good way to put it. And in the meantime, I would just continue to encourage people, don't get caught up in the politics of all of this. Just keep talking, keep learning.
yeah,
That's it. The
yeah.
politics will follow.
It's true. It's true. All of that will fall into place. But yeah,
Hmm.
right now it's just getting as many Albertans educated as we can.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
on some pretty
Yay.
exciting stuff. Awesome. Is there anything else, Kathy? Let me see. Okay, so we have the meeting in Grand Prairie on the 1st. Hoping
Hmm.
to do another one up there on the 2nd.
Yeah.
April 24th, we have another meeting in Mountain View. This time it won't be at my place. Someone else just outside of town is going to host it. We've got somebody in Cardston who is figuring out dates right now. So we'll have meetings in Cardston.
Okay.
And I know Edmonton, we're kind of getting it figured out.
Yeah, Edmonton's a little bit sleepy, but that's normal for around here.
Yeah, yeah,
So it'll come.
yeah.
Someone will say, "Yeah, sure, I'll host it. Let's go."
Yeah, I'm gonna set a goal that we're gonna have a meeting in Edmonton by the end of May,
Oh, I think for sure. I'm
if not
really,
sooner.
yeah, I think if we did a group, like a bigger group one, like what we're going to do in Grand Prairie
Yeah,
here to kind of kick that off, that
yeah,
would definitely do it.
yeah.
That would definitely do it. And it might be the same in Calgary. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, that's her playground down there.
That's her
So,
playground. So once she gets back from Europe, then we're gonna talk and
yeah.
super excited. And just she has an amazing story. Just I'm
Hmm.
super excited for us to be able to sit down with her and for her to be able to share that story with all of our Awin folks. And yeah,
Yeah, she's a powerhouse.
oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for this one. Hey,
I think it is. Thank you so
cool.
much, Kathy.
Thank you. I missed you while you were gone. I'm glad you're home.
Yeah, I ate a lot of Belgian chocolate.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
it was fantastic.
I believe it. I believe it.
Right? Oh boy.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
in touch, all ready for Easter then. You ate all the
Mhm.
chocolate prior.
Well, I brought some Belgian chocolate back for Easter. So I'm like, "Ugh, the North American stuff tastes like wax after you've had this."
I bet. I never
Yeah,
thought of that.
yeah, it's
Never
pretty
thought of that.
crazy. Well, and the friend that I'm staying with, she's been taking a course to become a pastry chef.
Mm. That would
Amazing.
have been dangerous
It
though.
was so I just said, forget the diet, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy this while I'm here.
No kidding.
I'll hike
Oh,
it off this summer anyway.
yeah, no kidding. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
We'll bring some Belgian chocolate up when you come.
I will for sure.
We'll snack on the way to Grand Prairie.
On the way to Grand Prairie. Alrighty.
Cool. All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
chat with you
Thanks so
later.
much.